two mechanisms that the cortex can analyze the signals. Okay? Here you can see a mechanism for 2-point discrimination. What does it mean, people, 2-point discrimination? Imagine that you are touching one point in the skin. Okay? So, you can feel the location. But what happens if you have two locations being touched together? Two locations in the skin that are being touched together and at the same time. Okay? So, if the stimulations, I mean these 2 points, are far enough, you can perceive them as 2 separate points. But if you bring them closer, then you feel only 1 point of sensation. They are actually different, but the brain is not able to dissociate between them. And the brain thinks that only 1 point is being touched. Okay? So 2-point discrimination means being able to discriminate between 2 points that are actually different and actually separate, but they may be close together. Okay, so we call this 2-point discrimination. This is an ability of the somatosensory cortex. So now let's see the mechanism. So when we have only one single point of stimulation, some receptors in the skin are activated. Meissner, Corpuscle, Meissner, I don't know, Chile and everything, Merkel, okay? They send the information to the spinal cord, DCML system that go to the dorsal column nucleus, right? Thoracic create, right? In this location, we have divergence of information. Remember the divergence, right? Fibers are divided into several branches and then activate more neurons. So here only 1 neuron was active, but now 3 neurons are active. So the information is becoming wider in the brain. And each of these go to the next station. Next station is in the thalamus. In thalamus, each of them activate a lot of neurons. So more population of neurons are activated. Then they go to the cortex, somatosensory area 1, right? Again, we have divergence. So this means 1 point of stimulation in the skin activates several neurons in the cortex, right? When the stimulation is weak, only some neurons are active. So the highest activity of the neurons happen in the center of the cortex, okay? So cortical area, which receive fibers from this point, okay? When the stimulation is moderate, more neurons are activated. More neurons are activated, and the firing activity is more also. When the stimulation is strong, then the highest population of the neurons are activated, and the firing activity is maximum. So, with only 1 point of stimulation that happens in the skin, several neurons are activated in the cortex, and the number of these neurons depends on the intensity of the stimulation. When the intensity increases, more neurons are active. And the activity itself is also dependent on the intensity of the stimulation. With weak stimulation, firing rate is lower. With strong stimulation, firing rate is higher, right? So, the cortex is easily able to detect this point of stimulation, right? But now, when 2 points are touched at the same time, what happens? 2 different neurons are active here. Okay, we ignore the middle part of this tract. Okay, we ignore the dorsal column of thalamus, and we know that divergence causes a huge number of neurons in the cortex to become active, right? But For this neuron, the center of activity is here. For this neuron, the center of activity is here. Focus on the blue line. It has one peak or two small peaks that are attached together actually. So the brain is not able to detect these 2 points because only one area in the cortex is activated. So the cortex thinks that only one point was touched. Okay? So there are some means for the DCML system to increase the sharpness of this stimulation. We call this lateral inhibition. Lateral inhibition means at every station that we have, the highly activated neuron inhibits the lateral neurons. I mean, for example, this point was activated, right? Several other neurons are activated in other stations. So, which one is more active? The central one. Why? Because we have more branches of this neuron. So this neuron has the highest activity among these populations, right? So the neuron which has the highest activity inhibits the surrounding neurons. So by way of some interneurons, right? So let me draw it for you. So, neuron from the skin come to the, for example, grassy nucleus. Okay? It divides into several branches and it activates 3 different neurons. Right? But the central one is activated more than the other ones. Right? So this may generate 10 action potential per second, but this one may generate 3 action potential per second. Which one is most active? This one. What happens? Lateral inhibition. What does it mean? It has some branches, right? Which activate some interneurons that go this way and this way and inhibit these 2 neurons. Right? So when the stimulation happens in the skin, one neuron is activated at the highest level, and this neuron tries to suppress the surrounding neurons. It says all of the information is mine. You shouldn't be involved. Okay? So this one tries to actually get all of the information, for example. Okay? So it sends the information to the next station. And the same happens also in the next station, in the thalamus. Right? And thalamic neurons go to the cortex, and also in the cortex we have lateral inhibition. So we call this lateral inhibition. Lateral inhibition, okay? So lateral inhibition happens in dorsal column, in thalamus, and in cortex. So anywhere that we have synapse, right? Because of this lateral inhibition, instead of having only one peak, we will have 2 separate peaks in the cortex. Now, the brain is able to dissociate between the 2 points that are being touched. Okay? This way, the cortex can increase its ability for detecting separate points of stimulation. So we call this 2-point discrimination. 2-point discrimination is highest at the tip of the fingers because we have a lot of receptors in the fingers, right? But it's lowest in the, for example, in the trunk, in the back. For example, if 2 points are separated only for 2 millimeters in the finger, we are able to feel them separately. So only 2 or 3 millimeters apart, okay, is enough for differentiating between these two. But in the back of the body, we need at least 3 to 7 centimeters of distance to feel them as separate points, okay? So 2-point discrimination is highest in the finger and lowest in the back. So does it only a matter of receptor? I know that you know that we have more receptors in the fingertips and less receptors or fewer receptors in the back. Okay, that's true. But also in the cortex, the area related to the hand is very large, and the area related for trunk is very small. So we can see the brain, the hemisphere. You can see that the area of the cortex devoted to the face is large. Face is small in the body, right? But the cortical area is very large. The hand is also small in the body. It's a very small area of the body, right? But the cortex has a very large area for the hand. But the trunk is large, but a small area of the cortex was devoted to the trunk. And a small area is devoted to the leg. It means that sensation from the leg is not so precise. Sensation from the trunk is not also so precise. But the hand is a very sensitive organ for touch. So that's why we touch everything with our hand, not with our back. Okay? So, because there are more receptors in the hand, and the cortical area for the hand is very large, that means we have billions of neurons devoted for touch from the hand. Right? But a few neurons devoted to touch from the back, for example, or the trunk. Right? So, another thing. So let's see the response of one neuron in the somatosensory cortex to touch. Okay? So actually this is not in your book, but I provided you with this because it may cause more understanding of the issue. Okay? So this is the back of the hand of a monkey. Okay? So we are simulating the hand of the monkey like this. Okay? Moving something, moving an object upward, or moving an object downward, or to the right of you, okay, to the left, okay? So different directions. And at the same time, we are recording the action potential from the neuron in the cortex. One neuron in the cortex. Okay, if this neuron is located in the leg area, movement of the object in the hand doesn't activate the neuron. Does it make sense? So, this neuron should be located here, in the hand area. So you should put your electrode in the hand area. If you put the electrode in the face area, you cannot record anything by touching the hand, right? Am I right? Yes. So, you put the electrode in the hand area of the monkey. So this is, for example, the right hand. So you should put the electrode into the left side of the brain, in the hand area. Right? So, and you are recording the action potentials. So each of these vertical lines are action potential. Right? So, you can see that when you move an object this way, okay, this stimulation doesn't activate the neuron. You can see only 1 or 2 action potentials, right? But when you move the object this way, you can see that this neuron is highly activated. It generates several action potentials, right? When you move the object this way, you have some activity. This way, you will have less activity. This way, more activity. This way, Exactly. So this means any movement toward the left can activate the neuron, this neuron. Any movement to the right cannot activate the neuron. So this means this neuron is only specialized for movement on the back of the hand to the left side. So if you actually remove the electrode from this neuron and put it on another neuron which is very close to this neuron, maybe on a neighboring neuron, okay, that neuron may have another response property. For example, that neuron is maybe active more for right hand movement, right side movement. Okay? So we have millions of neurons in the cortex, in the somatosensory cortex. Some of them are highly activated when something moves to the left on the back of the hand. Others are activated when something goes to the right on the back of the hand. Some other populations are highly activated when something goes toward the fingers. Some others are activated when something goes toward the wrist. Okay, and also we have some other populations for movement in direction between these. Okay, and we may have other populations that do not respond to any movement on the back of the hand, but they respond to movement in the palm. Okay, maybe in this same area we may have neurons that doesn't respond to the touch, but they respond to the temperature. Okay? Some other populations of the neurons in the same area may become active only when there is vibrating stimulation, not movement. Some other neurons are maybe active when you, for example, give something like Tika in the palm. Okay? So, based on this, we can say that in the somatosensory cortex, different populations of the neurons are especially activated when a specific kind of a stimulation arises. Right? Yeah. And the direction also matters here, the direction of the stimulation. Okay? So both the type of the stimulation, duration of the stimulation, direction of the stimulation, intensity of the stimulation, all of these can be detected by neurons in the somatosensory area. And all of these features go to the somatosensory association. And the associational area combines these features in order to judge about the nature of the object. Right? So this is the way the cortex functions for somatosensory sensation. Now let's go to mechanisms involving position sensation. Okay? Position sensation depends on knowing the degree of angulation of all joints in all planes and the rates of changes. So we are aware of our body. If you also close your eyes, you're still aware of your body. Okay? Because you have flow of information from the body to the brain. And somatosensory areas analyze these signals and they make an understanding of your body. So at each time, at each moment, you know the position of your elbow, your knee, your wrist, your ankle, every joint in your body. Okay? So this calls position sensation. And sometimes you move only one joint. So the signal from that joint changes in the brain. So the brain gets aware of the movement of that joint. Okay? In order to know the position of the joint, we need some receptors. Which receptors are more important for position? These. Okay. Tactile receptors in the skin. Also, deep receptors in the joints are used for position of small joints, like fingers. Okay? So fingers mainly depend on skin receptors. But large joints like knee mainly depends on deep receptors. Deep receptors include joint receptors, Golgi tendon organ, I will talk about this in the next part. Muscle spindle from the muscle. So, receptors that are located in joints and muscle are called hip receptors. They are mainly involved in position sensation from large joints, like the knee, like the elbow, right? But for a small joints, like joints in the fingers, we mainly rely on skin receptors. Okay? I told you that we have, for example, Ruffini endings in joints and in the skin. Okay? So there are Ruffini endings in these areas of the skin. Okay? On the joints, I mean. So when you stretch your fingers, Ruffini endings are stretched, they are activated. They send the signals to the brain. So based on the information that comes from the Ruffini endings, the brain knows the position of the fingers. Okay? If you can bend your, for example, fingers, the pacinian corpuscles here are pressed, so they send information. Okay? So when you move your finger this way, pacinian corpuscles here are activated, Ruffini endings here are activated. So Ruffini endings on the back, pacinian corpuscles on the palm, right, are activated. So they send the information to the brain, and based on the pattern of activity on these neurons, the brain knows the position of the fingers. But with movement of the elbow and movement of the knee, usually hip receptors in the muscles and in joints are important. Okay? So, in the mid-range of motion, usually muscle spindles are more important. At the extremes of joint angulation, pacinian corpuscle, Ruffini endings, and Golgi tendon organs are important.
Third point, joint angulation of.
Sorry, joint angulation. So
Mid-range motion.
Extremes of joint angulation. Yeah. For example, this is the extreme bending or extreme stretch. But in the mid-range, okay, muscle spindles are important. But when you stretch it totally or bend it totally, then these receptors are more important. So, this is the response of thalamic neurons in the ventral posterior nucleus to the angulation of the joints. The joint here is the knee. Okay? So, the knee can be in 0 degree when it's bent totally, or it can totally stretch, so the degree is 108. Right? So, total bending, total stretch. Right? What happens? You have 5 neurons in the, so 5 example neurons. In the thalamus, they are all being recorded. I mean, action potentials are being recorded from these neurons. So, you can see that when the knee is bending totally, here, at degree 0, 3 of these 5 neurons are highly active. Right? When you start to open the knee gradually, when you increase the degree little by little, right? You can see that the firing rate of these neurons decline, right? In the mid-range, these neurons tend to stop firing, but another population of the neurons start to fire. Neurons 4 and 5. When you stretch the knee totally, then you can see that all of these neurons are completely silent, but these 2 are maximally active. So, what does the brain see? The brain sees some population of the neurons from the thalamus are highly active, other populations are totally silent. So, this means total bending. Okay? In another situations, the brain sees that the pattern of activity is completely changed. those populations that were active now they are silent, and those that were silent are highly active now. So this means the bending situation was changed. Okay, so based on this, the brain have an exact understanding of the position, angulation of the joints, and the movement of the joints. Okay, so this is the way that the brain can interpret the position. So we have seen so far that somatosensory information goes to the brain, and the brain has some special mechanism for analysis of the signals in order to detect the touch, the direction of the touch, position, angulation of the joints. Okay, so the brain is able to detect all of these. Now, let's see how the brain receives phase signals and temperature signals. Right? So we started with receptors. We have seen different types of receptors for touch, position, vibration, pressure. We have seen receptors for temperature and for pain, right? And I told you that A beta fibers carry signals for those specialized receptors, 5, right? 5 receptors. And C fibers carry signals from free nerve endings, right? Free nerve endings are coming from some touch receptors, some pain receptors, and some temperature receptors, right? And we have seen that A beta fibers enter the spinal cord and go through the DCML system to the brain, right? And we have seen the way that the brain processes the information. Now, let's see what happens to the C fibers. They come to the spinal cord and go to the brain through the anterolateral system, spinothalamic system, right? So, we will focus on the spinothalamic system. So, pain activates some C fibers or some A delta fibers also. They go to the spinal cord, but they stop here. It's a different with DCML. In the DCML system, the medial branch goes straight to the medulla on the sensor, right? But here, fibers go to the spinal cord and they synapse here. They stop here. The second order neuron so is in the spine. In the DCML was in the medulla, right? Puracillum nucleus, right? But here is in the dorsal horn of the spine. So the second order neurons crosses the midline and go to the opposite side and ascend in the anterolateral system. Anterolateral. Right? So in the anterior column or lateral. It goes upward, and meanwhile fibers from the hand join the fibers. Right? They go to the medulla. They won't stop here in the medulla. But they send some collaterals, right? Some side branches to the reticular formation. Reticular formation of the medulla. So we call this spino-reticular tract, right? But the main fiber goes up. Then, it also passes the pons, reaches the mesencephalon, midbrain. Again, there is no synapse here, but there are some collaterals. These collaterals go to the tectal area. So we call this spinomesencephalic tract. Sorry, they go to the midbrain, so we call this spinomesencephalic tract, right? But the main fiber continues its way to the thalamus. Then it stops here. So the second synapse is in the thalamus. Second synapse is in the thalamus. Second neuron was in the spinal. First neuron was in the diod. Right? So from here, ventral posterior nucleus thalamus, we have some fibers that go to the cortex. Again, somatosensory area 1. Somatosensory area 1. So we have some similarities between these two tracts and some differences. The main difference is the location of the cross, right? The cross here happens in the spinal cord, but in the DCML happens in medulla. It's very important. So, pain signals are conveyed through the spinal cord contralaterally. But touch signals are conveyed through the spinal cord ipsilaterally. Right? These are main differences. So, let's see the pain fibers. So, I told you that we have A delta fibers and C fibers for pain. A delta fibers for fast pain. C fibers for slow and chronic pain, right? So, you can see that A delta fibers come to the spinal cord, they go to the layer 1. Here. In layer 1, we have the second order neuron that crosses the midline, right? And go to the lateral spinothalamic tract. It's for fast, sharp pain. But C fibers that carry chronic pain enter the spinal cord and synapse in layers 2 and 3. 2 and 3, okay? Fibers from here go to the layer 5, and from layer 5, other fibers go to the opposite side and ascend to the ventral side of the spinothalamic tract. So this pathway is for slow chronic pain. This one is called neo-spinothalamic tract, neo-spinothalamic. This one is called paleo-spinothalamic tract. So neo-spinothalamic tract is for fast pain. Paleo-spinothalamic tract is for slow pain. So we have dual pathways for transmission of pain signals in the brain. Right? So, A delta fibers release glutamate. But C fibers release glutamate plus substance P. Glutamate and substance P. So this is an example of co-release, or let's say co-transmission. Right? So if I ask you about the co-transmission, one example is here. At the ending of the C fibers, we have vesicles enriched with glutamate and vesicles that fills with substance P. If the action potentials come to the end of the C fibers actually regularly, or let's say single action potentials may release only glutamate, but if we have a lot of action potentials, both glutamate and substance P are released. Remember from our previous session? So, and you should know the differences between these two. A delta fibers synapse in lamina 1, but C fibers synapse in lamina 2 and 3, and from here fibers go to lamina 5. So these are very important. You look tired. Or confused maybe.
Can you repeat the last point, please?
Yeah. So the distinctions between the paleo-spinothalamic tract and neo-spinothalamic tract. Neo-spinothalamic tract originates from A delta fibers, right? But paleo-spinothalamic tract originates from C fibers. C fibers carry chronic pain, but A delta fibers chronic fast pain. So neo-spinothalamic tract is for fast pain, paleo-spinothalamic tract for chronic pain. At the end of the C fibers, we have glutamate and substance P. But at the ending of the A delta fibers, we have only glutamate. Glutamate is a small molecule rapidly acting neurotransmitter. But substance P is a neuropeptide. it has long action, right? So they go upward, non-stop, they reach the thalamus, right? Okay, but for pain, in the new spinothalamic tract, most of the fibers reach the thalamus, but a few of them go to the reticular formation, I told you, right? So most of the fibers in the new spinothalamic tract go to the thalamus. Which nuclei?
BPL.
Ventral posterior lateral, ventral posterior inferior. Okay. And fibers from the face and head go to the ventral posterior medial. Some of them go to intralaminar nuclei. So different nuclei in the thalamus, right? And from thalamus they go to the somatosensory area 1. Okay. Some of them also go to insular cortex. You know insular? It's buried in the lateral fissure, right? So some of the pain fibers go to the insula. So the main one is somatosensory area 1. So for new spinothalamic tract, the afferent is A delta. It releases glutamate, right? It ends in layer 1 of the dorsal horn. Sensory fibers cross to the opposite side. They go upward. Most of them go to thalamus. Which nuclei? These. Those that are coming from the body go to the ventral posterior lateral and inferior. Those from the face go to the ventral posterior medial. So if you have toothache, right? It's from the face. It goes to this region. If you have pain in your knee, this nuclei receive the right? From the thalamus, information goes to the somatosensory area 1 and insular cortex, right? Some of the fibers also go to the reticular formation, okay? But for paleo-spinothalamic tract, the afferent is C fiber, releases glutamate and substance P. It ends in layer 2 and 3 of the dorsal horn. From here, neurons go to the layer 5. From layer 5, they go to the opposite side. They go upward in the anterolateral system. Right? Most of the fibers terminate in reticular formation. But a few of them go to the thalamus. So it's actually reversed here, right? Everything is opposite here. So most of the fibers go to the reticular formation in the medulla and pons. Some of them go to the preaqueductal gray matter. Some of them go to the pectoral area. But a few of the fibers go to the thalamus. But which nucleus? Intralaminar, not DPL, DPL. Okay? Intralaminar nuclei. Do you know the anatomy of the thalamic nuclei?
Yes.
Did you have them?
Yes.
Yes, sir, yes.
Okay, very good. So they go to the parafascicular, centromedian, central, lateral nuclei of the intralaminar group. Okay? So, from the thalamus, again, some of them go to the hypothalamus, some others go to the basal region. So these fibers actually seldom go to the cortex. Most of them end in the subcortical areas, right? So, what is the function of the somatosensory area for pain? Actually, if you remove the whole cortex, okay? For example, in a cat or in a rat, in an animal, okay? So you remove the whole cortex. After the recovery of the surgery, you actually bother the animal with a painful stimulation. Okay? The animal senses the pain. The animal feels the pain. What does it mean? It means that for feeling the pain, the cortex is not necessary. Okay? Subcortical areas are enough for feeling the pain. So, for conscious perception of pain, subcortical areas are important, like reticular formation, thalamus, and other lower sections. But for judgment about the quality of the pain, is it sharp or vague or dull? Is it throbbing? No throbbing? Or it's like electrical shock, for example. So the quality of pain depends on the cortex. For localization, we also need cortex. So to tell the location of the pain, we need the cortex. Okay? So conscious perception of pain depends on subcortical areas, like reticular formation, thalamus, other subcortical areas, limbic system, hypothalamus, everywhere. Okay? But for judgment about the quality of the pain or location of the pain, we need cortex. Each area of the cortex, mainly somatosensory area 1, but also in singular cortex. So, we have seen two different pathways for transmission of pain signals to the cortex, right? Okay, now, we have also opposite pathways that suppress pain. And it's very interesting, I think. Okay, so we have bottom-up pathways for perception of the pain. We have top-down pathways for suppression of the pain. We call this an analgesia system. Everything starts from periventricular nuclei in the thalamus and hypothalamus, baby hypothalamus, mainly, okay? So fibers go to periaqueductal gray matter. You know this? PAG, it's around the aqueductal, the ciliary aqueduct, right? So PAG. From here we have neurons that go to the nucleus raphe magnus. It's a serotonergic nucleus, right? Neurons here release serotonin. Where they go? They go down to the medulla, spinal cord. They go to different levels of the spinal cord. Then the spinal cord, they activate some interneurons. These interneurons are inhibitory, right? The inhibitory interneuron actually cause presynaptic and postsynaptic inhibition in sensory pain fibers. Did you get this? So, imagine that this is a neuron from pain receptors, from nociceptors. They are bringing the information to the spinal cord. Some of them are C fibers, others are A delta fibers. They come to the spinal cord. And they activate some other neurons that cross the midline and go upward, right? This neuron. So we have a synapse here. I told you that the first synapse is in the spinal cord, dorsal cord. This synapse can be blocked by descending pathways. So pathways from periventricular zone and nucleus raphe magnus can block this synapse. What happens? Pain signals come to the spinal cord but doesn't go upward because the synapse is blocked. Right? So we call this gate theory of pain. So we have a gate for pain in the spinal cord. The gate can be opened or closed. The brain can close the gate. Okay? So when this happens, for example, maybe you have heard some occasions that a football player is playing in the field, okay, during the match, and he may broke his leg, right? But he doesn't feel so much pain. Okay? But the bone was really broken, you know? It should have, he or she should have severe pain. But they have only minimal pain. Why? Because this system blocks the pain signal at this point. The bone is broken, it sends a lot of signals to the spinal cord, and in the spinal cord they are all blood. They don't go upward. So, when you take this person to the hospital, then they feel severe pain. Okay? Because this system no longer works. Why? Because it depends on the emotional state. During the match, the emotional state is very high, the brain is active, okay? The person is in the condition of match, so this system is active, so it blocks the pain. But in the hospital, there is no emotional state, okay? Everything is normal. So the pain pathway can work. So the patient feels pain, right? So analgesia system works under some emotional conditions. The same also happens in the battlefield. The soldier may be shot, okay? But at first, they may not feel severe pain. When they are taken to the hospital, now they feel severe pain, okay? So the analgesia system works under emotional conditions. Another way for relief of the pain is massaging the skin. You all are familiar with that. If you take in your hand, then you massage it. And it's really helpful, right? How this happens? All happens in the spinal cord. So, this one, the blue one, is a pain fiber, maybe A delta or C fiber. Okay? It brings the pain signal to the spinal cord and activate neurons in layer 1 or 2 or 3 of the spinal cord. Right? So we have a synapse here. When you massage the skin, you are activating A beta fibers. Meissner corpuscle, Merkel, Lis, Pacinian corpuscle, Raffini, and all of them are activated, right? They use A beta fibers. The signals comes to the spinal cord. They go upward to the brain through the dorsal column. So the brain gets aware of this massage. But meanwhile, there are some collaterals that activate some inhibitory interneurons. Some collaterals, okay? Collaterals activate inhibitory interneuron. The inhibitory interneurons closes the gate, pain gate. So, the gate for pain can be closed by brain or by tactile sensations from the skin. Both of them can decrease the pain. Okay, so here we call this lateral inhibition again. So lateral inhibition is a mechanism for relief of the pain by massaging the skin, and also is another mechanism for sharpening the signals in the touch system for two-point discrimination. You remember? Lateral inhibition. So far we have talked about somatic pain, pain from the skin, joints, and bones. But there are also visceral pain. Right? Is it right? Okay, no problem.